Okay, so we're talking today about mirroring, matching, and mimicry. And mimicry is the one that I don't want anyone to do. It's the thing that I think I've already got it going. I think we're good. Now, mimicry is the one that we're going to discuss very briefly because every one of you have had a kid do this to you before, or you've done it to someone else and nobody likes it. You spot it from a mile away, it annoys you, and it's the thing that I don't want anyone to walk away from here having the impression that that's what I want you to do, because it is not. If you are mimicking others, I will tell you right now, what that means is that you are in your head way too much. You're considering you far too much, and how you look, and how you are acting, and how you are thinking. The skill of mirroring and matching is that you're getting into the head of the other person and beginning to feel what they feel, think like they think, hear what they hear, see what they see. And that's what you're really trying to do. So when you're mirroring and matching, you're more closely trying to identify with the way that other person is representing the world to themselves, not the way that you want you to be represented to them. Okay? Quit thinking about you. You'll do much better if you get out of your own head and not think about me in this situation. Okay? So, for the first 15 minutes, we're going to work on sensory acuity and emotional intelligence. And the reason we're going to do that is because none of neuro-linguistic programming works without emotional intelligence training. You have to be cued up on the way others are feeling so that you can, in real time, get that biofeedback and know how to apply it to the conversation. Okay, you need to know these things. So, the 8 major emotions are listed here. We've got anger, contempt, fear, disgust, happiness, sadness, and surprise. Now, I want everyone to study this list, and this is a little different list than the one we used last time. And it might be 7. Is it 7 today?
Well, I was just thinking it's interesting that most of them are negative.
It's 7. Yes, so, and actually, they're not necessarily negative once you actually really look at them closely, as much as they are, we attribute positivity or negativity to them. They're not necessarily all negative, and they're not necessarily even positive. So when you think about those things, you're really trying to not attribute positive or negative to those things.
No value judgments.
Right. We don't have any value judgments about the way people are feeling, because they get to feel however they want. And you get to feel however you want. Okay? So, study the above list, break up into small groups, and we've got small enough groups here, we'll be able to do this pretty well. Have one person pick a certain emotion from the list to exhibit in their physiology, posture, and micro-expressions, while the other members of the group guess which emotion is being acted out. Take turns. Be honest and share when the correct or incorrect conclusion is reached. Now, I should have spit out my gum before I started, so I'm going to go do that real quickly. And then I am going to be the first one that goes because I like to be the main person on the spot, okay? So I will demonstrate one of these 7 emotions to everyone in the room, and everyone's going to go around and guess which one it is. All right, great job, guys. Give yourselves a hand. That is tough work. Now, don't expect that you will get this the first day and you'll be able to just pick up on it. That's not the way it works. And in fact, when you're working with humans, you'll find that there may be somebody who's completely different than anybody you've ever dealt with before, and you're getting all the wrong signals. That's okay. All right? The main thing is that this is practice, practice, practice. The more that you practice it, the more that it becomes instinctive, and you begin to automatically, when your mirror neurons activate, you begin to feel what other people are feeling, and it will create an empathy and a rapport between you that there's no other way to be able to develop that skill than this hard one.
Would you not also say that when you're having a conversation, even if they're feeling an opposite emotion to what they're displaying, that there you have context?
Yes.
And so doing this is much more difficult than if you're in a true conversation.
Absolutely. You're right here. We don't have any other
ulterior motives.
We're not pulling off of any of their language patterns. We've got no descriptors. We don't have anything. So whenever you have the full toolkit,
exactly,
this becomes even more powerful.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so we're going to talk a bit about mimicry, mirroring, and matching. That YouTube video right there in blue, guys, that is one of the coolest 5-minute YouTube videos on mirroring that I've ever seen. Darren Brown is a professional hypnotist, mentalist, and illusionist, and he's an expert at behavior psychology and things like that. He goes into a restaurant, he mirrors and matches 3 different people. 2 people he has 0 effect on. There's minimal mirroring that goes on, and they get up and they leave. The 3rd person, he completely puts the guy out. The guy falls asleep at the table. He's mirroring so closely, and then he puts him into hypnosis, and the guy ends up stealing a television on the way home. and of course he's not in any trouble because Darren sets the whole thing up. But it's a demonstration on how powerfully this can work when you're good at it, but not to get discouraged if you aren't able to get someone to participate, okay? Because this is a skill that requires the other person actually being engaged with you. They have to pick up on it. It's unconscious, it's subconscious. They don't realize they're picking up on it. It's things that occur in family situations, friend situations. Like I said, Kath and Deborah, right before I mentioned it, were almost identical in mirroring each other's body language and posture, and we hadn't even gone over any of it. It's something that happens in social situations naturally, okay? So mimicry is the action of imitating someone or something, typically in order to entertain or ridicule. This is the thing I don't want anyone doing. In fact, I want everyone to take a pen and mark through it. You will not be doing this. We will be mirroring. Now, there are 2 forms of mirroring, which is why I wrote an A and a B. One is the behavior or skill in which one person subconsciously or intentionally parallels the physiology, gesture, speech pattern, body language, breathing, or attitude of another. The second one is mirroring that often occurs naturally without any single observer involved knowingly participating in social situations, particularly in the company of close friends or family. Okay? This is the type of mirroring that occurs that nobody's doing intentionally, it's just happening. The reason that this is now a technique and a skill and is taught as a method is because of the observations that occurred when people were watching Virginia Satir, who was a therapist back in the 70s, and Pearl Fritz, is that a Gestalt therapist? There was another Gestalt therapist that what Richard Bandler and John Grinder did was they studied hours of these therapists and modeled them and noticed that they were doing these things. So when they watched them, they watched that they would mirror people. And they watched how effective it was in building rapport and how they were able to break through barriers and psychological issues quickly, very fast, by using these methods that seemed to be natural, that they weren't doing intentionally. Well, then they wondered what would happen if we did them intentionally. So that's where this comes from, okay? Now, what we are going to do is focus it on doing this intentionally, but we're going to do that by learning how people do it unintentionally and subconsciously. Does that make sense? Because we want to study the natural ways that this happens more than unnatural ways. Hey, Deborah, wave at me. That's a mirror, okay? I used the same hand on the same side. Wave at me again. That's a match. Okay, I matched her behavior, but not mirrored. I didn't use the same hand on the same side, I used the opposite. And it was almost in real time. Yeah. You couldn't even tell that I was making the decision, but I did. And I've staggered it and varied it on purpose because you don't want to mirror every single thing. And in fact, Deborah did this, and I didn't. I did it just a little different.
I noticed that.
You noticed that?
Yeah.
The second time or the first time?
The first time, because when you said you did it,
I went down just a little bit and first went side to side, right? So I instinctively will match even when I'm mirroring. I don't mirror identically. I vary it and stagger it on purpose.
And
now,
why is it bad to do the exact
because it
same
looks like
thing?
mimicry whenever you're doing it too closely tied to
It just draws too much attention to the fact that
people spot it, it looks intentional, like you're doing it on purpose. It's too much.
Okay.
It's just too much. It's almost like when you're walking down the hallway and 2 people try to get out of each other's way.
Right.
It's that, where it's like, I'm trying to communicate with you here, and every time I move, you're doing the exact same thing. Matching is flattering. Mirroring is flattering. Mimicry is not. It's awkward, it's weird, it's socially obtuse.
Right.
Okay? Matching, the behavior or skill in which one person subconsciously or intentionally acts similarly but not identically to another. This happens naturally in social situations, which is what I was trying to demonstrate with the mirroring and matching just now. Now, because I instinctively match, it's really hard for me to mirror. I'll tell you guys, like mirroring identically, like the mimicry thing, I can't hardly do it. It's very, very difficult for me to do it
You
because
just train yourself not to?
I've trained myself not to. Yeah, I do everything I can to look very natural whenever I mimic other people. When I'm mirroring others. I want it to come across as that it's totally natural, that this is natural rapport that's occurring between the two of us. Okay? Even though it is entirely intentional and it's not natural necessarily. Okay? Mimicry is insulting. Mirroring, if not skillfully executed, can appear insincere and too much like mimicry. A combination of mirroring and matching is the goal, but first we must learn what it feels like to be in rapport. Does anyone here have a good example of when you know there is an individual that you always are able to maintain rapport with? There's somebody that you just get along great with whenever you're around that person. It just feels like long lost brother, aunt, uncle, family, and it seems like you just kind of fit with one another like a glove. Does everyone have someone like that? I definitely do. If you can't think of anyone like that, maybe you can think of a conversation or a situation where it seemed like everything went right. That's the idea and the image that you have to have in your mind, and that's what we pre-frame in order for mirroring to work effectively. So, the first thing you have to do in mirroring and matching is pre-frame your outcomes. How many people in here have heard me speak at a workshop before? What's the number one most important thing for NLP to work? What do you have to know?
Know what your goal is, know what your outcome
Know the
is.
goal. You have to know the goal. So when we're pre-framing the goal of using mirroring and matching, what are the outcomes? What are some of the outcomes that you definitely want?
You want to create that rapport, you want to create a workable situation with that person, you want to be able to communicate with them.
Communication, right? Rapport. You want communication. You said you want to work with them, right?
Yes.
You want to work with, right? What else do we want to do? What are some of the other reasons we would use mirroring?
To hear and be heard.
Hear and be heard.
Yes.
What else?
I would say influence or persuade.
Influence, that's right. Influence, persuade. Anybody else? What's another reason why you would definitely want to be in rapport with someone else? Why you would definitely want to have the best communication. You want to work with them. You want to be able to be heard and hear well. You want to influence and persuade. What's another outcome that you want?
To speed things along.
Speed it up, right? Optimize. Optimize. Speed up. How many people in here, when they hear that, speed up and make it faster, how many of you kind of go, I don't want that? Is there anybody in
It
here?
depends on the situation, really.
There's certain, sometimes kinesthetic people absolutely are like, I don't want to speed it up. I want to take this nice and slow, make sure this feels right. Okay, so, very good. This is a pretty good list. You have to know what that looks like to you. Now, that's just vague. We're just throwing words out. These are all great, positive things that we always want, right?
Right.
So what does that look like? If you were to effectively use mirroring and matching, what are some of the images that come to your mind? How would that look? This is real pre-framing. Is when you actually visualize and think about the specifics. What's it going to look like whenever you and I are in rapport? Whenever you and I are mirroring effectively?
What is it going to physically, or what is it?
Yeah, what are some of our goals? What's it going to look like?
Okay, does look like can mean several different things.
Sure.
That's why I'm asking.
You're right, absolutely.
So what's it gonna look like? It means that we're going to be communicating and using the same types of language.
Same types of language. When you say language, do you mean we would be using similar words?
I mean that we would be using similar tone, similar pitch, similar volume, similar thought processes, even though it may not be the same words, they are congruent.
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if it's really an important point, yes, you want to hear the same word.
So did you all hear what it's going to look like when Deborah's in rapport with someone else, whenever she's mirroring? Most of how I mirror with Deborah is going to be what?
How you say things, the way you say things.
Because
Auditory, right?
Auditory.
She's auditory, right? So you can pick up on that while we were talking right here. It's going to be very important. If I'm mirroring Deborah, it's going to be most important that it sounds right. She's going to be less impressed if I look like she does. She's going to be most impressed if I sound like she does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that is not what I was.
Not at all. When you were thinking about my question, what did it look like to you?
It looked,
Visual.
it was visual.
Visual. What did you
You are
see?
visual.
What would you be looking for?
Friendship is the word that came to mind.
Friendship. And whenever you have friendship with another person, what visual comes to mind? How do you know?
Facial expressions.
What do you see?
Body language.
Mirroring body language and facial expressions. What else?
And emotions.
And emotions,
It's
expressions.
facial expressions, but it's, look at me. I'm like, it's more.
Good. Now, if I'm mirroring Kat, what do I need to focus on most?
I'm watching your
She is watching me. She wants to know that I'm going to lean in. It's going to be a lot of body language. It's going to be a lot of that. That's the most important things to her. Okay? Do you think it's important for me to use words like what Kathy likes to use?
Yes. Yes, because her words are a picture, and the words she uses represent her style of learning. And so it's important that we use similar words that represent her visual representation in order to make her, because words are still there. And
Words are a mirror too.
Yes.
I
Okay?
see what you see, or I hear what you see, or I.
Right, exactly.
I see what you're saying.
Yes, that's.
I see how it sounds to you.
Right.
What? And that makes sense to us. For me to see how it sounds to you makes sense to us. Right? Very important to remember words. Remember, if you're dealing with someone who's more visual or more auditory, what's going to be most important for you to mirror. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So, pre-framing outcome. What we did here first was pre-frame the outcome, how it would sound to us if it was going well, or how it would look to us if it were going well. How's it going to feel when you're in rapport with someone else and you're mirroring them well?
Warm.
Warm. How's it going to feel?
Effortless.
Effortless.
Connection.
Connection.
It's going to feel like I would say, a positive connection in that if you're angry about something, they're empathetic towards that anger. They can say, yeah, they understand, they can. Sometimes when you speak with someone, you're like, they don't get where I'm coming from at all. But that, if you're kinesthetic, because I lean that way too,
Mm-hmm.
I need to know that you understand my position.
How I feel. How it makes me feel.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so a proper pre-frame is whenever you do your best to analyze in your mind and play out how you want it to look, sound, and feel when you are effectively doing this correctly. That's a proper pre-frame. So what did we do? We utilized our people in the room, our human resources, to extract word models that will tell us how to pre-frame how something will look, sound. Then we got our visuals from Kat, and she told us how it would look. And then everybody in the room was able to generate some form of kinesthetic feeling. Why do you think that is?
Because we all have pieces of each.
That's correct. Absolutely right. We all use all of these. Okay? A proper pre-frame is an application of all of these in your own mind so that you will activate your mirror neurons as soon as you are clearly seeing, hearing, and feeling that outcome. Your mirror neurons in your brain begin to release all the physiology you need to execute this skill. Because now you have an outcome that's clear and a reason to do it. So, the next thing we do is focus on developing our sensory acuity. That's what we did when we first came in. We need to be very conscious of it. Focus a lot on developing your emotional intelligence and your sensory acuity. You will never, ever waste 1 minute of your time working in that area. Not 1 second. And we can all use more. Okay? Now, the next thing you have to do is study your subject. You have to be the best learner, listener, feeler in the room. You are watching that person like a hawk, listening to their every word, listening to their every breath, watching their every subtle gesture and movement. Every single thing. You're studying them closely like you have to write a thesis on them. And when you're studying them, you're noting their language patterns, you're noting their body language, you're noting their attitude, whether it's a positive or a negative one. And when you see that there are things that they're doing that are negative, you have to be able to identify that when you mirror their negative behaviors that they don't like, that will make them not like you too. There are things that people do that they're not aware of that they do that they don't like. You have to be watching that too, because you can be mirroring somebody and you're mirroring their attitude that's crappy, and that can be breaking rapport with you because they wanted you to make them feel better.
Right.
So you're just pouring fuel on their fire.
You're making them feel worse. You were supposed to be their answer. You were supposed to be their happy pill. They were supposed to come in and vent on you, and now you're venting back at them. You're ruining my venting.
Yes.
And all you're doing is mirroring. I thought this was the type of conversation we were having.
Yeah.
Thought it was a bitch session. What's the problem?
My turn, your turn, my turn, you turn.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were doing. And then they're the whole time going, God, this guy's negative.
Yeah.
I'm just doing what you're doing.
Wow.
I thought that's the type of friendship we had today. You know? So you have to be making note of that. Am I winding them up? Is this getting worse? Am I starting to actually break rapport? And they're like, I want to get away from this guy. Go find me somebody to make me happy. Okay? So you need to be watching those and taking note of those. Positive things that are bringing you closer and building that rapport, and negative things that you're mirroring from them that are breaking that rapport. I had one day, one of my clients came in, and I had decided to start flashing my orbicularis oculi, which is you raising your eyes like that. That's one of the main reasons we recognize others. You go out into a restaurant, if you see someone you know, well, guess what? If you do that, people think you know them. And automatically the brain registers that this is a friend.
Yes, it does.
Okay? So I was trying this. I have one client that her brain does not send that message. I came up to her, big flare. Hey, what's going on? Whoa, bro, can you calm down? Get all out of my space. You're like right in my bubble. I was a good 4 or 5 feet away from her, and I have been much closer before. And all of a sudden, I was just like, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry. I turned my body away. I'm so sorry. You're right. I totally came on too strong. I'm so sorry. I'm just in this mood. I'm really going for it today. And how are you? Immediately back in the report. Totally cool with it. Now, she could flash me her hi all day long, but I couldn't do it back to her. She wasn't in the mood for it.
People like that, are they,
That's such a good point.
are they aware of that?
No.
They tend not to be, right?
Right.
They're
Most
okay.
people are completely and entirely unaware.
That happened to me 2 days ago. I was in a networking meeting, and there's a woman that I have met on numerous occasions, and I have been invited into that space, and I went up and said, hey, it's so good to see you again, and that's what we were intentionally doing, and she just, and knew, it never occurred to me that her reaction in that manner could have been her mood that day, because, or maybe she didn't recognize me out of context.
There you go.
both of
Out of
those.
context is tough.
Out of context is very tough. Absolutely.
So, but she reacted so negatively.
There was a joke about that, about some Baptists never recognize each other in the bar or something like that. Yeah, in the liquor store, something like that. I can remember, I heard that joke a long time ago. But it's, out of context. Yeah, you see somebody and you're like, they're not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. Wait.
But sometimes it doesn't happen opposite,
Sure.
that if there was somebody here in this library, that I might walk right past them. But if I saw them at an airport in, I don't know, Chicago,
Because it's in a random location that you didn't expect to see him.
Absolutely.
yeah, and I'm not focused on everybody else, and all of a sudden, I see her.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's kind of like it's a pattern interrupt because you didn't expect that.
Right.
Your brain didn't expect to see that, and that can shock you sometimes, and takes you time to recover. And the brain's still trying to compartmentalize. How come I saw this person here when they're not supposed to be here?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think, in the situation I described earlier, that someone's perception of their level of importance influences that situation?
So most of the time when people distance themselves from us or act a way that seems like that they don't like us, and that's the impression that we get, we're like that they're sending a signal that they're uncomfortable with us. Most of the time it's because they're uncomfortable with them. That most of the time. We're insecure, we're feeling badly about ourselves for some reason, we don't want to engage because of us.
I don't want to interact
Could
with
be
you right
bad
now.
breath, could be
Right.
something that for whatever
No,
reason.
I totally agree, but I was actually thinking.
I might have missed your point.
So yes, I totally agree with you there, that they feel bad about themselves. And that is usually what this comes from. But I think sometimes when you encounter that, and you tell me whether I'm right or not, when you encounter that, I think that it is sometimes people, if they have the nameplate on and they are representing a particular organization,
Sure.
let's say, and they are director, CEO, I'm more important here, so I don't know where you stand in a social setting.
Yes.
So let me go talk to people
Yes.
where I know where they stand in the social setting.
That does happen a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it happens because people. Okay, so that's associative. Associative weighting. It's utilizing social advantages, but most of the time people with name tags on are going to do themselves a disservice not to mingle with everyone else. but they do. But yes, I have seen that, and that goes again against the psychology of the person because they're being counterproductive, right?
Right.
And it oftentimes, we have different ways that we all do this, that we've made these categorical general assumptions, where we assume certain things about social situations and constructs. And what I try to teach people is you're most powerful when you're reading the situation you're in.
Yes.
Rather than trying to make generalizations about social circumstances and situations, you're most powerful when you're using all of this information to analyze your current.
Yeah.
Right now, what's the room reading? Right now, what's going on? Rather than, what happens a lot of times, like in our sales training with Robert, whenever Bold Networking, we're doing sales training, is that most of the sales training is anecdotal. It's in hindsight, I should have done this.
Right.
Whereas what we try to teach is the psychological tools and methodologies to make you more intentional to where you're doing preemptive
Right.
going in, setting yourself up advantageously to preemptively do things, because hindsight's tough.
It is.
I could do a much better job in the moment of figuring out what's going on than if you and I even were in the same room and 2 weeks later we try to figure out what was going on there. That's going to be really tough. Whereas if you and I are sitting in a room with all of these skills analyzing the situation in real time, if we're utilizing these skills, we're going to be uncovering things quickly and getting to the truth.
Right.
And still have time to do something about it.
Exactly. Yeah, hindsight's real tough to work with. You can learn a lot from revisiting things in hindsight, but mostly only in how can I change me? Really going back and analyzing other people, we just don't have enough information. We don't have them to interrogate, to talk to monitor now. So we don't really know anything, unfortunately. Yes, sir.
On that point,
Yes.
most powerful in the situation,
Mm-hmm.
by looking at generalizations from your past,
Yes.
you're really kind of, it's a disservice to that current communication and that current rapport and that current that everything you're filtering through, half of it could be wrong.
Because it's in hindsight after I've learned this new thing.
Yeah.
Right. After I've started applying this new thinking, now what was going on there? Well, you didn't have this thinking there.
Right.
You were applying a different model of the world
Yeah.
then. So yes, going back and rehashing that with new information that doesn't apply to that specific situation makes it very difficult to analyze and can be detrimental.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because you're, like you said, you're monitoring through a different filter. Okay, so then what are some of the other things that we want to match and mirror? Language, the words, gestures, and movements. Tonality. Tonality is in reference to intensity. Let me write a sentence up on the board.
So you wrote it in all caps, so that signifies intensity.
So I did that intentionally,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
I want to leave.
But even your writing versus you've written this other words in all caps is different.
Mm-hmm.
It's more straight to the point, whereas that's more fluid.
Correct.
So,
And I'm making a specific point with this sentence.
right.
I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to leave. I want to leave. Tonality says something different. Everywhere in the sentence it means something a little different. You are saying something differently. So if someone keeps saying, I want to do this, when you say back to them, what do you say back when you're clarifying?
I.
Or, so you don't necessarily feel that way. Is it okay if others do? You know, like you, if that's where they're putting the tonalities on them, then you do too.
Because that's the most important part of that sentence.
To them, because they're marking it with tonality. You want to mirror that, okay? Pitch. This is a powerful one that most people aren't aware of. I actually speak in an octave just a little bit higher than what my voice should be, and that's because studies and research have shown that there are different pitches that are more effective for communication than others. And so I have gone through great lengths to make sure that my pitch is where it should be in order to communicate in a way that doesn't put people off. Or hypnotize them entirely into a trance while I'm talking to where they're just... Have you guys ever listened to the Clear Eyes guy? Clear Eyes, dry eyes, Bueller. There are some people whose voices that have no variation in them at all, and they're so monotone, that you just go into a trance listening to them, just because they just put you to sleep. Now, a lot of those communicators can instill a lot of directives and commands that are subconscious, you know, some things that you ought to look at, study at later, and you find yourself studying later on that night about a subject you didn't even think about. But cognitive, conscious communication is hindered in that situation. So you want to match their pitch. If they have a tendency to speak higher pitches, you want to kind of match those. If they kind of have a tendency to go up at the end of sentences, you want to kind of match that pitch if they have a tendency to do that. And then cadence. If you're speaking to someone from the East Coast, are they going to have a tendency to talk like those of us in the Midwest?
No.
Probably not. What are they going to think about you if you speak at that pace?
That you are less intelligent, that you are not engaged, would you hurry up and finish the sentence?
My God, how long does it take you to finish that sentence? Do you really not know what you're going to say before you start talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to disconnect with you, right?
They'll probably talk over you too.
That's
They
right.
They can't wait for you to
They can't wait for you to finish, and it's obvious that you don't know what you want to say, and I do, so I'm going to talk. Right? So you want to match people's cadence. If they're speaking quickly, you want to match their rhythm. Okay? Especially if they're giving you the impression that they're in a hurry. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to give somebody the impression with my cadence that I'm really in a hurry, I really gotta go.
They just don't get it.
I'll tell you what, man, it sure is a nice day. It really is, Bill.
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here, man. I really appreciate you making the time for me today, but we gotta get this done and I gotta hit the road. Not you.
I've been on both
This
ends of
was a
that.
different Bill.
I've been on both ends of that.
Right, so we want to match cadence. Go ahead, Michael.
Is that also the same as pace?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Describe to me what you think of when you think of pace.
Well, when you're talking to me and you're talking to this group, you're talking more like this.
Yes.
Versus when I'm talking and I'm asking a question, I'm slowing down my pace.
Mm-hmm.
So is that the same thing as cadence?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I immediately went to pacing and
Leading
leading.
and pacing.
Yeah, which is another skill that we
Okay,
teach
okay.
in neuro-linguistic
So-
programming, and I don't want that confused.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay.
Right.
But yes, in the way that you used it, you're absolutely right. That is correct. Timbre. Does anyone know what timbre is?
It is the resonance of your voice.
Yeah, and it's the quality, right? So, have you ever heard someone who is a good singer but they can't hold the note? Like they can hit it, but you can't hold it. That's lack of timbre. They can't maintain the quality of the note. Whenever I was playing musical instruments in high school, it was important to maintain the quality of the note while you played as well as the pitch. You want the right key, you want the right pitch, but you want quality. It's got the sound has to sustain. If there's a lot of breaks and variation, you got a lot of. Have you guys ever talked to somebody who keeps clearing their throat?
It's frustrating because
It's frustrating.
you get to something that you want to talk about, and then it's just one break after.
Yeah, and you're just kind of sitting there going, I really want to just get through it. I know you're not doing this intentionally, but man, it keeps breaking my concentration. It's because the quality of the sound that you're hearing keeps distorting. You keep hearing fluctuation in it. So you want to mirror somebody else as much as you can. If they keep clearing their throat, don't clear your throat. That's mimicry, okay? That's mimicry. Don't do that.
But does that also work, when people start, sneezing or?
You'll notice that if people are doing a lot of this,
Right,
if you're in rapport with them, you'll be doing it too.
right.
You probably won't be doing the,
You don't actually have it.
you don't actually have anything, but you're going to be doing a lot of the same mannerisms and small gestures that they're doing.
Yeah.
You'll be doing similar things if you're in good rapport with someone else. If it's happening naturally, that's fine. But definitely don't try to play it up to somebody else's head cold.
Yeah.
They're not gonna like you for that. All right, posture, how the body is positioned. If you go to talk to somebody and you introduce yourself to them, and they stay turned away from you, kind of like this, should you openly come in? No.
Don't try to bust through that wall.
Don't bust through that wall. Absolutely. I am going to teach everyone a quick business professional handshake that maintains rapport real quickly. And if you ever have a situation where you can utilize this, it's very powerful. And when you go to shake someone's hand, either a slight tap on the elbow or the hand. Slight, very slight, and very short. Not a big embrace or anything
Not
like
holding
that.
it, the
Not
position.
holding it and really cupping it.
Yeah.
Real fast, real fast. It's just a tap, and it's a kinesthetic anchor that lets them know that you're safe. It's a familial, tribal thing that everybody kind of instinctively, it just kind of builds rapport and immediately breaks that down. It also lets you know if they're absolutely opposed to that. It will let you know if they're not a toucher and they like their personal space. It will give you enough feedback, biofeedback. When you do that, you'll feel that jerk away, and you can apologize at that time, right then.
Right. because
Immediately.
don't.
When they pull away from you, if you go to shake their hand and you go to tap them and they shudder when you go to tap them and you can feel them kind of pull back, you go, I'm really sorry about that. That's an instinctual thing I do with my mom. And I'm really sorry. I have a tendency to just do that. And forgive me for that. That's apologize.
And then never do it again.
And never do it again. And give them their space. Okay? You can feel that. You can feel that feedback. And it'll let you know whether or not they're opposed to you or not really quickly. Give you an opportunity to get back in rapport or to establish rapport. Breathing. One thing that Kath talked about just a few minutes ago was that when she was afraid, she held her breath. When she was demonstrating the emotion of fear, she said, I held my breath.
And that's very common.
Very common for people to change breathing patterns when they change emotional states. So what do you think it will send a message to someone if you're breathing similarly?
You're in rapport.
That's right. When you are relaxed, Bill, and you're really resting and relaxing, are you breathing quickly, slowly?
Very slowly.
Very slowly.
Not like sweeping, but slowly.
Right? Are you breathing high in the chest or are you breathing low into the abdomen, into the belly?
Low.
Low, right? What's a situation where you would be breathing quickly?
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight, stress, right? Surprise, anger, contempt. Where's that breathing going to go? In the belly or up in the chest?
It's up here.
Right? If somebody's breathing into their belly, long breaths, they're at ease. Okay? If they're higher up, they're tight. They're, for some reason, they got something going on. They're controlling their breathing for some reason. Now, it might be because the stress is too tight.
But you can also tell just from a conversation if you're touching on a subject
Mhm.
that they don't like.
Absolutely.
If their breathing changes. That's,
Exactly. It might be. It might be just because they don't like the way they look in the shirt and they wish they hadn't worn it today. It might be. It really might. So that's why you have to, when you're monitoring these things, find out whether it's important or not. You can notice whenever you're mirroring someone, you can notice whether it's important or not. Whenever I'm mirroring Deborah, do I focus more on these type of words? You can tell whether or not it's important to that person in real time. Okay? So if their breathing is something of significance, they will let you know when you start to mirror their breathing by their physiology. They will get more calm the more your breathing matches, and they'll start to breathe into their belly and at ease if that's something that matters to them.
It's the empathy. piece that we
Correct.
discussed.
Absolutely. Because you're feeling what they're feeling, and they can tell. Okay, micro expressions. Eyebrows, mouth, eyes, and unconscious tails. Is it important to always give everyone eye contact when they're speaking to you?
And 100% of the time, no.
Right. Why? How do you know that?
Because then they think you're staring, and in natural conversation, we automatically break, we automatically look. Yeah, it's creepy.
It can get really creepy, right?
It also depends on context. Like when I lived in Japan, the subordinate never makes eye contact.
Never.
Exactly, I was gonna say, cultural.
You're looking
yeah.
down when you bow. You're not looking at their eyes. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's considered rude,
Exactly.
So yeah.
socially rude. And that's why it's important to mirror. Pick up on what feels most comfortable and normal to them. This idea of maintaining eye contact came from a visual learner
Right.
who wanted everyone to maintain eye contact and who felt like that they did better when they did.
When I was teaching school in Tulsa and had a lot of African American kids that wouldn't look me in the eye, drove me nuts.
Yeah.
Until I learned
It's a social thing.
it's a social thing, and in their
Cultural.
culture, oh, it's challenging.
Yeah, you try to start a fight?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
And similar in Japan. You are not doing your role correctly. Absolutely. Why it's important, you don't know this person's family background, you don't know their culture, you don't know their history. So you need to mirror, not assume,
Yeah.
mirror. Discover, learn, watch. Do they like to raise their eyebrows when they're talking? Do they like to smile? Do they never smile? There are certain people that if you smile too much,
Oh, they trust
They
you.
don't trust you.
yeah, what's this guy trying to pull?
Yeah.
And they will not smile almost the entire conversation. If you don't pick up on that and start putting that toothy grin away, you can forget about that person ever wanting to do business with you. They will not trust you. They'll walk away from
Or
you.
they may not respect you.
Right.
It's because they think you're a simple.
And it's not intentional. They're not thinking this through. It's not rational. They didn't sit down and go, I don't like that guy. You just weren't mirroring. And they picked up on it, that you're not like them. If you were, you would have been acting more like them. So you're just not. People like people who are most like themselves or who are like they want to be. Breathing, microexpressions, personal space, distance between as dictated by physiology. We talked about that already. If someone is giving you the impression that they need their personal space and you are in their bubble, get the hell out. Get out of their bubble. Get out of their bubble, get out of their space. If you have not checked your breath, make sure you keep your distance. Most females are olfactory gentlemen. If you have bad breath, they will dislike you and they will not want to talk to you. It has nothing to do with your looks, your kindness, your smile. It has nothing, but they cannot be around you.
And we have to tell ourselves, keep listening, don't smell.
That's right.
Listening,
Yep.
don't smell.
Keep turning your smeller off. Breathe through your mouth. That's right. And so if someone is giving you that, it might not be that they're a personal space person. It might be your breath. It might be your BO. It might be something like that. And if you give them that personal space and you're not infringing on their nose and they're not getting disgusted by you, you can still maintain a rapport with that person, even if you do smell a little bit badly, by maintaining that personal space, giving them that boundary, getting through that conversation or that interaction, and then going on about your business. If you've eaten garlic today, good chance that you might want to give people their personal space. Just do it. Okay? Next, physiology, the mannerisms associated with emotional states. Emotional state is a meta model of reality. Does everyone know what that means? What is a meta model of reality?
Your perception.
The filter through which you interpret everything.
No.
Is that actually what's happening?
Not necessarily.
Maybe not.
Maybe, maybe not.
Good one you said.
Absolutely. Maybe, maybe not. It's our reality. It's our model, the map of what's going on. Physiology is determined by that model. That's why we tell people to be your authentic self in sales training a lot, is because if you're lying about who you are, your physiology will tell it.
Yeah, it'll come out.
You don't have to say a word. Everyone reads it from a mile away if you don't believe the shit you're selling. Don't lie to yourself. Emotional states are going to dictate your physiology. That's why we pre-frame. How's it going to sound? How's it going to look? How's it going to feel whenever I'm mirroring and connecting with others the correct way? Pre-frame that, set that up. That will dictate your physiology. That will be your emotional state. That will be your reality going into it. Cultural generalizations. This is the most important part of all of this. Cultural generalizations, assumptions, and biases. Is your meta model actually what's happening? Probably not, because we have cultural generalizations, assumptions, and biases. All of us do. Every single person in this room has something that you've got, that you created, that's a belief, that's a generalization that falls apart the minute you start examining it. You can't validate it, you can't substantiate it, it won't have any facts to substantiate it. And that's fine. We all do this, okay? So, when we mirror and match someone else's cultural or regional generalizations, we do not adopt their mindset, we embrace their mindset. Does everyone understand the difference? We align with it in order to fully understand the subject. In no way should you violate your own morality or ethical codes in order to develop a rapport, as this will be a violation of your internal meta model of who you are.
That's powerful.
Yes, it's the most powerful part of the lesson.
Well, yeah, I think you just said
In my opinion. And the reason why is because we want to really get what they're thinking without judgment.
Right.
I want to really know how you see the world. And chances are that a lot of the people that are out there that you want to work with, that need your help and need your product, and you need them and they need you, you have some things that you are going to disagree upon fundamentally. And that's okay. but you don't even know what you disagree upon until you're ready to really, really embrace the way someone else's mind works, their cultural generalizations, assumptions, and things, the way that they have organized the way the world works. Unless you're ready to really dive into that, not judge it, investigate it, and scout it out, you're not ready for this program.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Based on this, so I have a dear friend, I've known this person for a little while, and we were having coffee the other day,
Mhm.
and they were expressing their views, which I'm very open to. I don't have a problem with people expressing their views, but for some reason, in that context, and I'm not going to say what I think.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
not because I want you to answer, but some of where they were going after they talked about it for an extended period of time, not the initial, I was just like, okay, I've got to have a break and get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did do what I was supposed to do and break it, and left on great rapport. But at what point, why do you think, I know that's their belief system, I
Mhm.
respect it 100%.
Sure.
Why did I have that reaction?
Most of the time, the reason why we have, do you feel like that you were opposed to their view?
No.
Okay, so I think that what you just said is very telling. I think you needed a break. I think
Okay.
that you needed a mental break. You had taken it in so much and listened to it so much that your head was spinning and you needed a break.
Okay. 'Cause
Now, that happens to me a lot when I'm working with linguistic meta models, and we'll get into that later on. I think I'm teaching that in September. When we talk about language meta model patterns, when I'm working with people who are constantly violating language syntax, where they're saying, well, my husband just makes me sad. And I go, okay. What does your husband do that makes you choose to be sad?
Yes.
Now, the reason I'm doing that is I am challenging the meta model of the way that it was said.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you're working with somebody who has all these different meta models in place, where, well, my life is just broken and my husband makes me sad, and everything you're hearing is, I have no responsibilities here. My life's happening to me.
Yeah.
Right.
These are meta models that this person has put up and constructed that are beliefs about their life. If I'm working with somebody like that over the course of an hour and it's a lot of those different patterns that we're having a break, I can need a break. I can need, like, I'm sorry, I have to take a break. We've been violating these linguistic patterns for an hour.
That makes perfect sense. Because I don't necessarily agree with them, but I don't have a problem with them.
One of the things that you'll realize is whenever we're doing this sensory acuity and we're doing these emotions, is that after you do this, you're kind of drained emotionally.
Yeah, because you're trying to pick up on everyone else's wavelength and feel what they're feeling.
Well, and remember, your limbic system
yeah.
is attached to this whole process. You are feeling these emotions.
Right.
You're literally feeling them.
Exactly.
So when you're listening to another human and there are challenging beliefs and you're talking about meta models and you're violating different generalizations and biases and assumptions and you're really hammering this stuff out, you're shifting emotional states the whole time. Just
Yes.
And when at the end of that conversation, if you've done a really good job of mirroring and maintaining rapport, you're a wreck. You're exhausted. If you're really good at this, you're exhausted at the end of this.
And that also explains why she was energized. And
Oh, and they'll be totally energized. Oh my gosh, nobody's ever listened to me this great. I feel amazing.
Yeah, can we meet again?
Can we meet again? I can't wait to talk to you. Absolutely, yeah. And you, as the person who's just spent all the time listening and pulling out of this person and getting into their depths of their psychology, you're a wreck, man. You're just like, whoo! I need a Kit Kat, Snickers, and a Coke. Get all my energy back. All the junk I never eat anymore. Okay. Yeah, does that help at all?
Yes,
So,
tremendously,
because
because-
and that's why I asked, were you opposed to their views? Now, because if you can disagree with somebody and not be opposed,
Right.
if you're opposed to somebody else's views, I'm telling you guys, that's the reason I have this last part on there, is to try to get you to break that mental
It's tough to
pattern.
sit there and
Yeah.
listen to something that you just fundamentally.
You will
disagree
show
with.
it all over your face. If you're opposed to it, you will show it everywhere on your body, your face, and you might as well get up and walk out because you're breaking rapport. They know it.
Right.
And they may be just preaching at you now at this point, trying to either convert you.
Yeah, they can double down on that.
They're doubling down. They're
Even
either
worse.
going to convert, now that you already know how I think, I'm either going to double down on this to get this rapport back, to get you to come over to my side of thinking, or I'm just going to tell you how I feel because who cares? You already don't like it.
That was the rated G version. Here's how I.
Yeah, now here's how I really feel, right? And then they'll just hammer you with their beliefs and thoughts.
That makes
So I want to break your emotional reaction to automatically be opposed to a position. I want you to embrace a position that you're opposed to. Embrace it, flesh it out, really get inside the mentality of what it would look like, but don't ever adopt it. It's not yours, but it is your responsibility to be empathetic and to learn the way another person thinks. That is yours. Why? Because you want to work with humans.
Right.
And if you want to work with humans, you have to be able to understand how they think without necessarily adopting that mindset. Because if you want to be able to help others come out of belief systems that are restricting them, you have to be able to see the way that they believe.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
There are toxic people though.
Mhm.
Yes.
One should not
Yes.
join those waters.
And we don't even really have to discuss the anomaly of narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. Those are anomalies that don't pertain to this. This is the majority of humans that are not trying to hurt others.
You'll never get to this point with them in the first place because they won't be willing to walk on that path with you.
You'll think,
They're not
you actually
Yeah,
will
that's
think that they're already you're maintaining excellent, you'll never spot those people.
Because that's what
They
do.
maintain
That's what they
excellent
do to
rapport.
you first.
Yes, they do, until you get
Until they
into the
do.
relationship.
Until the
with
web.
them, and then you're caught.
Once you're in the web, it's
Oh,
over.
boy.
Those people are masters.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
And I learned a lot of this stuff from them, and now I teach it to you so that you can not be hurt by those people, but also so that you can utilize some of their skills to help others and to help yourself. Because some of the skills that they use work. They work really well. And it's important for you to be able to develop skills that are useful and good and not be opposed to them just because bad people use them. Bad people do use some good skills. And we don't need them to be the only ones that know them. Okay? So the most important thing is that last paragraph. I'm going to read it one more time. It's on cultural generalizations, assumptions, and biases. When we mirror and match someone else's cultural or regional generalizations, we do not adopt their mindset. We embrace their mindset and align with it in order to fully understand the subject. Either the subject being discussed or the subject that we are observing, the person. Okay? Either one, both subjects. In no way should you violate your own morality or ethical codes in order to develop rapport, as this will be a violation of your internal mental model of who you are. That's the thing that narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths can do that you won't be able to do. You cannot actually convert your belief system to someone else's belief system temporarily. That doesn't work. You can embrace their mindset. Try to become them in that moment. You're not them. You're becoming them. You're mirroring them. You're matching them. You're establishing that you are a friend, not a foe, that you are in their tribe, not opposed to them because you are. Even if you have a difference of opinions, you are still on their side.
You understand where they're coming from.
That's right. And we're all friends.
Yeah.
Okay? Great job today, guys. I really appreciate you being here. Did everyone feel like they got a pretty good understanding of what mirroring and matching is? Awesome. Please go watch that 5-minute video with Darren Brown. It will give you a real-life demonstration of someone doing this with strangers and not even in a conversation. He's 3 tables away mirroring. And so it's really pretty powerful to see it. And it's all body language, all mannerisms, all behaviors, drinking at the same time, eating at the same time, all that type of stuff, and from across the room, and shows how you can establish rapport with a complete stranger. And of course, it only works 33% of the time for him, and he's a professional. It works 1 out of 3 of the demonstrations. So just remember that somebody has to be engaged, ready to engage as well. You know, they can't be preoccupied with something else. You can tell the people who have something else to do, in their day and they've got somewhere to be and stuff like that, they're not influenced by them at all. Okay? I really appreciate it, guys. Great job today. Thank you.